Alright guys, it's time for the OBS video. In this video I'm going to show you how to set up the kind of three-person fancified version of our digital classroom or classroom of the future. First let me just introduce to you some of the overall ideas. You're going to have several scenes. You're going to have the top level scenes, that's going to be Instructor 1, Instructor 2, and Instructor 3. Below that you're going to have things like, Arvin, Chelsea, Megan, Merck, etc. And then below that, you're going to have a scene called Arvin Source, Chelsea Source, Megan Source, Merck Source, etc. And we're going to take these things fairly deep, and there's actually reason behind all of this. Let's take a look at what we're trying to achieve here, right? We're trying to achieve something like this, and you'll see a few things over here. First, the background has been cut out, and that's something that we use Skype to accomplish. We have these backgrounds over here. Here we have lower thirds going on here. We have these lower third backgrounds here in red. And we want to have all those things. And there's a few things that you guys probably don't know about just yet. So this is the Steven source. And notice that I can move Steven respectively. So let's say that Steven is, for whatever reason, like shifted way over to the left or right. I can move him very, very easily. And sometimes you'll notice that for whatever reason, instructors, because of where they're positioned in their room, they'll be towards one side or the other of their camera, and you need to get them dead center for this to work. So let's go in how we basically do this. So we start out with the lowest level. In this case, we'll use Steven. We have the Steven source file. And the only thing in the Steven video, there's two things here, but the only thing that you actually need is the NDI. So to create an NDI source, you hit the plus button and you choose NDI source. Now, NDI is what you use to get stuff from Skype into OBS. And there's some complicated stuff over there. I've been working on this stuff for months, so there's a lot of stuff going on here. Let's take a look at how you activate NDI in Skype first. What NDI is, it's what TV studios, etc. use when they're doing a remote interview. So for example, anytime I'm doing an interview here for politics, I Skype into the studio uses NDI, and we also use NDI. So here's how NDI works. You're going to go to settings inside of Skype. You're going to go to calling. You're going to go from calling, you're going to go all the way here to advanced, and you're going to do allow NDI usage. And then let's close that up now. Now, if you look over here at the properties, for me to assign Steven an NDI source, I have to wait for him to be on Skype at least one time. Then I choose of the various NDI sources available, and right now there's not really anything available. I don't really have Skype open. But of the various NDI sources, I choose the one that corresponds to Steven. Then the only other things that I'm going to do here is once I've selected that source, I just make sure that the NDI source takes up the whole window. If it comes in, say, at 800 by 600 or something weird, just stretch it out so it covers the whole window. So it looks kind of like this. All right, so that's the first level. Now, that's the scene that's called Steven source. Now let's look at how we create this scene called Steven. The scene called Steven has two things. It has Steven's lower thirds on it, and it has the Steven source. The Steven source scene. So in other words, I import that scene into this scene. How do I do that? I click Add a Scene, and I pick that scene, the Steven source scene. How do I add the lower thirds? That's just a media file. And I've put these all inside of the Google Drive in the folder called OBS Resources. So we have the Steven lower thirds, and we have the Steven source in this scene. Now here's where I'm going to add my first filter. So to open up filter, you right click on the Steven source, you go to filters, and I'm going to add an image mask. And I've put two image masks in that folder, either Square Mask 6 or Square Mask 6-01 or Square Mask 5-01. You can create a mask in any shape you want to. What a mask is it cuts out everything around it. The reason that we use masks is so that when you're in this type of scene, let's say I'm in the middle here, it doesn't look like we're like sitting on top of each other or anything bizarre like that. If we lean too far to the right or left, it just kind of cuts us off rather than has us on top of each other, which might end up looking weird or disastrous or God knows what. So we use that more as a safety precaution. So that's the first filter that I'm going to have is that. So that's the easy part. Let's go to the slightly more difficult part. Now we're going to have three scenes, the three major scenes above that, which are going to be Instructor 1, Instructor 2, and for you guys, Instructor 3. For me, Instructor 3 is just me, because if I'm there, I'll just be the third instructor. But for you guys, you'll have Instructor 1, Instructor 2, and Instructor 3. And what those are is basically so here I have the Alice activated. And inside of Instructor 1, Instructor 2, and Instructor 3, you're going to have the scenes of all the instructors. So you'll have Stephen, Merck, Alice, Megan. You won't have Stephen's source and all that here. Stephen's source only appears inside of Stephen. So the reason we do that is that's what allows us to move people left and right with respect inside of the mask. And what we do with these is you want to sort of align them, and then you can click them on and off. You can pick one. Whoops, that's not a real one. And you can pick a different one. And that way, at the beginning of class, or a little bit before class, I go to Instructor 1, I activate that instructor. I go to Instructor 2, activate that instructor. And there's no meaning or hierarchy to Instructor 1 and Instructor 2. It's just, whatever you want it to be. So inside of Instructor 1 and Instructor 2 and Instructor 3, what you're going to need is don't worry about all the stuff in here. All you're going to need is the things that correspond to the people, like Merck, Stephen, Alice, Megan, all that kind of stuff. And same thing for Instructor 2. So now that we have those things, let's look at how we put together the entire scene. And we're going to do just the instructors. So here I have a left instructor and a right instructor. Cool. And we can see right now the right instructor is just Instructor 2, and if I hide that scene, that's what you lose. And Instructor 1 is the instructor left is the left instructor, which is like that. Now here's where we get to the next type of filter that we're going to use. There's actually a couple filters that are going to come in here. So there's two filters. The first is going to be the 3D transform. Now 3D transform is what lets us put, as you see, Stephen is kind of at this cool angle. That's what this allows. It lets you kind of turn people a little bit sideways in a way that's 3D. When I do that, I do perspective. Now to get 3D transform, you first have to install an additional type of thing, the StreamFX add-on. StreamFX is just a set of add-ons for OBS. It works for Windows. If you're on a Mac, then you just won't do this part. You'll just have everybody flat. If you're on Windows, then download StreamFX and then install that onto your computer, obviously. So the first thing is the 3D transform. The first change you're going to make when you get in here is you're not going to pick orthographic. You're going to drop down to perspective. That's what makes it have that sort of more aggressive 3D angle. I've set the field of view here to 100.76, and that moves it back so that it doesn't get cut off when you rotate it. And then finally, I've set the yaw to 8.62 degrees. And you can play around with it. I mean, these aren't set in stone. Obviously, experiment. The next filter that I'm adding is the chroma key filter. And what chroma key does is it deletes the green background. And so if you look, for example, at the Stephen source, let's see how that looks compared to here. See, Stephen source has that green background still, right? And even Stephen has the green background. But in the Instructor 1, I apply that chroma key, and then I delete the background. And for these, because the chroma keying is being done by Skype, it's like the exact right color. So I just leave these at the default. There's nothing that you need to do special for that. Instructor 2 is pretty much the same filters get applied. Now notice that these filters get applied in the overall big scene, the 3 instructor scene. That's where you're going to apply the filters. So you don't apply the filters inside of here, because that'll make Stephen, if you apply it to say Stephen, then Stephen will always be at that angle. And if you want Stephen on the other side of the screen, it'll be at the wrong angle. So you don't apply any of those rotation filters in Instructor 1, 2, or 3. You apply them to the entire Instructor 1 scene when you're actually inside of here. So you apply to the scene up here, if that makes some kind of sense. And don't worry, I know that everyone, there's going to be a lot of trial and error. I'll walk you through all this stuff before a lot of different classes. So that's basically how you do that part. The next piece is, well, now that we've deleted Steven's background, we want to put some kind of cool background behind him. And for that background, we're going to have a left background, a right background, and a center background. They're all the same source file, and the way that it works is this. In the left, right, and center background, I only have one file in there that really matters, that one visible file. And that's the looping background, and I've put that inside of the OBS resources folder in the Google Drive. The reason, again, that we have these as separate scenes is if I just apply the rotation directly to this looping background, then it'll always be rotated. I don't want it always rotating the same angle, because if you look here, I want this little background blue filter at one angle, and here I wanted it at a slightly different angle, and here I just don't want it to have any angle at all. So what I do is I have the left, right, and center background. They all only have the looping that looping background in there. Then, let's go back to here. What do? I just put them behind these people and give them put them on the same rotation, essentially. So if we look over here, here's let's look at the left background. Let's look at the filters on that. The only filters that we see, there's two filters. One is the image mask, and that's the image mask -6-01. That way, it's not the whole thing stretching out into infinity. It's just like the piece that we need. And then the 3D transform with the exact same specifications as the previous. 101.74 in terms of the field of view. We've set the camera to perspective, not orthographic. And the yaw to 8.62. And obviously the yaw on the other side is just negative 8.62. So that's how we do that. Now notice again, we're applying that to the entire scene, to the left background scene. And that's basically the whole thing. Then you just kind of like line it up and make sure things are lined up well. Because we're using this masking, we can move things back and forth in the left and center and right background. We can move them back and forth if you want to adjust things. And as you see, I've tried to line it up so it creates kind of a mirroring effect, right? And it's not 100% perfect. I'm sure that Chelsea and Merck and those guys will line it up even better. But the idea is we want to create that sort of seamless thing. The goal of that is to make it seem obviously like we're all in the exact same place, so that it has that sort of cohesiveness. And that's the first step of many, many steps. If you want to have it say Vora method, then this is just a text. You just add text over there. I can show you what that looks like. It's just a text thing, and here are the filters that I apply. 3D transform, the field of view is a little bit more out. It's 114.45. The yaw is less. And because it's not centered, because it's up at the top, I use a shear, and the shear that I use is just in the Y angle, which is 43.95%. Listen, if you don't want to put that stuff up there yet, don't worry about that. The main thing is to get the instructors up there. Now, let's say you're not feeling ready to do all this stuff, don't worry about the lower thirds just yet. You can leave that for later. If you're feeling like you're ready to do all this stuff, yeah, put it all in, lower thirds, all that. And I'm going to be there at the beginning of class as usual to help you guys understand how to do this stuff, to walk you through this process. The goal is over the next week or two, I want more people to be able to run class because we want to be able to have more classes. And also I want to be able to focus on some of the development of some of the new things that we're doing because there's just so many opportunities out there right now. I want to be able to make sure that we're taking advantage of as many of them as we possibly can. If you guys have questions, you know what to do. Just ask me before a class or set up a meeting and I can walk you through this stuff. This stuff is tricky. I don't expect anybody to get this totally right in their first try. If you have questions, whatever, we'll go through them. Keep working hard, and I will see you guys tomorrow.